email. God shall preserve that. Has anybody ever responded to it?
Oh, you're good.
Okay, let's get to the end of it. Yeah.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of the meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designates the time and date and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. And we request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device will be so utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison.
He is out this evening.
Ms. Grace.
Here.
Mr. Munoz.
Here.
Mrs. Stubbs.
She's out this evening.
Mrs. Winters.
Is ill.
Mrs. Strata.
Here.
Mr. Mercado.
Present.
Mr. Carlemere.
Here.
Mr. Curtis.
Here.
Mr. Lechner.
Here.
Chief Harkins.
Here.
Mr. Chadwell. He's running late.
Okay, thank you. We'll first open up our public portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone addressing council may speak one time. Once all those wishing to address council have had their turn, they may address council a second time. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and the maximum is 15 minutes for the first public portion. Would anyone like to speak on agenda items only? Seeing none, we'll close the first public portion. Bid report.
2021 recycling truck.
I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Ms. Grace.
Yes.
Mr. Munoz.
Yes.
Mrs. Strata.
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
Yes. Accept the minutes and waive the reading of the executive session on September 13, 2021, and regular session September 13, 2021, and September 27, 2021. I entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Ms. Grace.
Yes.
Mr. Munoz.
Yes.
Mrs. Strata.
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
Yes. Next, we have our items of consent agenda. Any council member would like to have any of the items removed, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. So moved.
Make that motion.
Second? Okay, thank you. Either or. On the question, roll call, please.
Ms. Grace.
Yes.
Mr. Munoz.
Yes.
Mrs. Strata.
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
Yes. We have a eGov access email. We have 2 of them. From Elizabeth Dugan at 6 Hemlock Drive in Blenheim, New Jersey. I did not see the bill list published online prior to tonight's meeting. Could you please tell me how much will be approved at tonight's meeting and paid? The bill list was published online. It's been on the website since last Thursday or Friday morning.
And I responded to her.
And you responded to her? Thank you very much for that. Second question from Elizabeth Dugan of 6 Hemlock Drive in Blenheim. I understand there was a Citizens Appreciation Ceremony this past Saturday. It seemed to be a decent turnout. For what I could tell from the crowd pictures and the posed photos, no one was wearing a mask and they were sitting very close to each other. Two township events and one run by a nonprofit which works closely with the township were all canceled by the township and the nonprofit. All were set to be outdoor events in October. The 2 township events were canceled due to safety concerns related to COVID. My questions are as follows. 1, why was the Citizens Appreciation Ceremony was safe to have, but the trunk or treat and food and beer event are not? Did you ask the guests at a Citizens Appreciation Ceremony to provide proof of vaccination before they could sit? For example. Second question, and I'll answer them in order. 2, will there be other outdoor events or ceremonies held by the township which are considered safer than the trunk or treat and food and beer events? If so, please explain why they are safer. I appreciate your time and effort to address these questions. So I'll start off with the trunk or treat. The trunk or treat event, the first year we held it was in 2014, and that was in response to individuals in our community, some that attend our meeting, they're not here today, this evening, that had indicated the previous year that the mayor was trying to cancel Halloween, which was false. Each year, council passes a resolution to inform individuals of what the curfew is for mischief night and Halloween, and recommend for children to go in their neighborhoods that they're familiar with and go to house parties, so forth and so on. So I came up with the idea to have a trunk or treat in our township, and anyone who's attended it, I'm not sure there's people in the audience that have, I would probably say there's about 4,000 to 5,000 people that attend this event. And Erica back Marconi has been at that event as a police officer, and that has children standing in line for about 2 hours with 60 vehicles giving out candy. As you well know, children under 12 are not vaccinated. I'm the one that coordinates that event. I'm responsible if it goes off without a hitch. And I had a conversation with the mayor, and I said I did not feel comfortable moving forward and having that particular event for trunk or treat. Halloween is not canceled. Children can still trick or treat in their neighborhoods. There are other events that children can participate. So if anyone has an issue with that, they can contact me directly regarding the trunk or treat event. With the food and beer event, that event was scheduled for this Saturday. There was a lack of food trucks, availability of food trucks for the event. Some neighboring towns have canceled their events because of lack of food trucks. There's also a lack of volunteers to work the event. That is an event for Gloucester Township Scholarship Committee. The money that's generated funds scholarships for high school seniors to attend college. I'm part of the Gloucester Township Scholarship Committee, and there were several emails sent out looking for volunteers for people to help out that evening. You have people afternoon, people with to check wristbands, people to pour beer, people to set up, and people to take down the setup afterwards. So it is a combination of food trucks, lack of volunteers, and also concern for our residents. The Pumpkin Festival, which is another event that it benefits the Main Stage organization. So yes, these are township provides the cost of police officers and public works, and however these two nonprofit organizations it benefits their organizations. So therefore, the Pumpkin Festival, that decision was made by the head of the leadership of Main Stage not to move forward because they have a lack of volunteers for that particular event. So that's why that was canceled. In response to her question was guests at the Citizens Appreciation Ceremony, did they have to provide proof of vaccination before they could sit? No, there was no request for proof of vaccination for the Citizens Appreciation Ceremony. The subsequent question that Ms. Dugan has, will there be other outdoor events or ceremonies held by the township which are considered safer than trunk or treat? I am not aware of any events that are forthcoming, large events. We do have a tree lighting ceremony that takes place sometime in December. Hopefully that there are people that if they need boosters, get boosters. If there's children that if the Pfizer vaccination is available and children 12 and under can get vaccinated, maybe some of these restrictions here for summer events will be lifted and we'll move forward. I know with our Martin Luther King event, as I look around the room, I think, there's probably one person that's attended that in the 10 years we've had it, Ms. Coyne, and she'll tell you there's 800 people that attend that event. And it's indoors, and there's 30 projects throughout the township. And right now, I am not comfortable having 800 people at the C.W. Lewis Gymnasium on Martin Luther King Day to have an event. So as we see the numbers, the numbers are declining. As most of you well know, I work in the school district. I see the numbers for our students. I see the numbers for our staff. So that is, if the mayor or Mr. Carson has a question about whether we should move forward, I express my concerns to them regarding those events. So if Ms. Dugan has any further questions, Ms. Dugan can contact me directly. All right, we'll now open up our second public portion. That is for any item that anyone wishes to address. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, and the public portion is for a 30-minute time period. Yes, sir.
My name is Andrew Gardner. I live at 50 Pinehurst Court, Blackwood, in Valley Brook.
Mr. Gardner.
I come to you today with an issue I'm having with my HOA. I'll give context of the issue and how the township is involved. I don't expect the council to fix my issue, but I do recommend the council address the problem, and I'll explain that to you.
Glen Eagles, correct?
That is correct. It's very important. I live in Glen Eagles. There's a pond river system that runs through our property in Valley Brook called Pine Run. So a lot of wastewater runs on its way to the Delaware through Valley Brook, through a lot of the townships, facilities that are just probably less than a mile from here. Unfortunately, there's a retaining wall in the back of my property of Glen Eagles that backs up to this pond. And that subdivision, or whatever you want to call it, is about 30 years old. And that retaining wall is beginning to fail, and it's causing a lot of runoff to go into the pond, as well as erosion in the land in my backyard and my neighbor's yard. So I went to the HOA regarding that, and what they told me was that it was the unit owner responsibility, which kind of doesn't make sense to me since this is a planned development unit. So what it's caused me to do is have to do a fact-finding mission, which involved your clerk, the town, for trying to identify the ownership of this asset in the back of my property and my neighbor's property. Trying to go through that requires a lot of deed searching and map searching of records with the clerk, with the permit area. So I'm going through that process now. I'd rather not have to go through a lawsuit or something, because that's very expensive. And considering the problem is only probably to fix that retaining wall, it's probably like $10,000 or $15,000. And my portion of that is maybe 20% or 15%. So I really don't find it cost effective to go through a lawsuit process. I'm trying to do the due diligence ahead of time here. But what I found out is that by going through this process, the township and pretty much the whole world is very departmentalized. So, it's hard to find ownership. And the reason why we have difficulty with ownership is because how the records are done today in the deed systems are very dated. They're very old. They're all form-based, document-based, right? Versus more computer-based, which are true and false. So in the example that I have, I don't expect you guys to fix the retaining wall, but I'll go through that process. But there's a bigger problem here. It's regarding record keeping, and I'm going to be more specific of assets that deal with runoff, retention, and their ownership, right? Because a lot of these units have two associations. These are run by nonprofit volunteers. So they may be doing the best they could, but they also could be playing political games. And it's better if we have these ownership identified using the public works, identify these assets that deal with water runoff that are on these shared development units, multi-development units, condominiums. That way we can prevent these assets from failing and causing bigger problems. The example would be in this community that we had the bike path when that bridge blew out. These are kind of assets that can be impacting not just the bike path, but also people's houses and units, right? So what's impacting me is that now my patio is starting to slip, everything's starting to slip down this hill, and I can't find an owner for that issue. So what I would ask the council to do is to maybe even pass an ordinance that says that if you're a planned development unit or a big development unit, you're required to show your proof of assets that you are maintaining. Because otherwise this nonprofit board can go in and do whatever they want, move assets, and that can become dangerous in the community. Because if these assets fail, we don't know if they're going to hurt individuals or property damage. So that's kind of where I would like the council to respond to about the record keeping of assets as they pertain to multi-development units, condominiums, and townhomes in this community.
And you're in the cul-de-sac there, the back cul-de-sac?
Yep.
Okay. If you can divulge, you don't have to, what progress have you made with the HOA?
I went to ADR. There was a reserve study. The reserve study was done, and the asset was documented on the reserve study. And what they told me in ADR that was a mistake, and that was my responsibility. And that's documented during the ADR process. So it's really difficult to find ownership. You know, that's really the biggest issue, is to make it very clear in the deed and the title documentation of these assets and the ownership of them in very specific language, saying this HOA, if this HOA goes away, then it's the municipality, then the individual. And that way we don't run into these type of ownership issues with other people in the community. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? I'm sorry, Orlando?
I'll just, it's about 11 years ago at the pool, that's to see you there. You know, there was a neighbor of yours in Glen Eagles that had an issue. And I remember calling Mr. Carlemere about it and asking what type of authority, if any, we had with an HOA. And I kind of confirmed, you know, with me that as a township, a municipality, we didn't have much say. And so I tried to take the high road here, and I wrote to the HOA and said it was about a roofing issue. Mm-hmm. And I talked about perhaps that we could find some middle ground and help this particular homeowner here. And then I received a newsletter with a Post-it note to stay out of their business. So that the township could not be involved in their type of development there. But I don't think the suggestion that you made, I don't think it's a bad one at all. Mr. Carlemere, do you want to chime in on that?
No, I took some notes, and perhaps we can have a conversation with our planner, or so as we move forward, so that's something that can be incorporated in land use regulations or ordinance requirements. That's where it would have to be addressed. I tend to think, just trying to think quickly, that when units get, projects get planned, those are the conditions you might want to consider. If it's going to be anywhere, that's how it should be.
Okay.
If they have their master deeds file, those are the things that identify.
And what's happened over time, back in like the early times, like we'll say in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, these were documents. Now we're moving to computer systems and data. So really we have the entities or nonprofit entities that these HOAs are, right? So we can definitely set up ownership matrix of assets as they relate to these entities, right? And that would prevent this kind of dispute. You know, be very clear for courts or things to settle these kinds of disputes that are in a more cost-effective way to get these projects done quicker and, you know, make sure our assets are staying, you know, fixed and upkept. Okay.
Yeah, and at the time it was with different leadership, I believe. So, you know, but that I was taken aback by the Post-it note, the newsletter that they sent me. So.
Yeah, but I will say that they are nonprofit organizations. So, however the town can manage their nonprofit organizations, you know, with compliance, you know, obviously, you know, regulation by you know, ordinance could be a way to do that, to require that larger homeowners associations with specific runoff, specific requirements on the project plans, that these assets are identified, ownership is, you know, identified on the deed where it's very specific and clear language. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Good seeing you again.
All right. Take care, Orlando.
Is there anyone else? Ms. Coyne.
I think this needs to be lowered. Thank you. And can you check if your microphones are on, because we can't hear you back there, especially Mr. Carlemere. Okay. Denise Coyne, choose Laney Road. The last meeting, I questioned the lack of supporting documentation for a T&M bill. And Mr. Cardis was able to get an answer from Mr. Slaheka regarding that bill. And Mr. Slaheka indicated that he was billing for the Blackwood West redevelopment plan. And my question is, the original proposal for that plan from T&M Associates stated that they would bill an amount not to exceed $24,100. And this bill seems to be, in addition to that, billed under not the Blackwood West redevelopment plan, but it is the Blackwood West redevelopment plan.
So the general redevelopment, so it's not tied to any specific award that was granted. And we're permitted to do that in the proposal that the RFQ was sent out and the proposal that was sent back in by T&M Associates. There is hourly rates for billing, and it was approved by the mayor to do the additional work. And I believe if you look in there, it lists who, I believe it's Taisha is the individual that they're dealing with.
Yes, that was the amended Blackwood West redevelopment plan that was presented at the council meeting in June.
And I believe Mr. Sochak's email there describes that this is under general redevelopment bill. I believe that's listed in the embodiment of that.
Right, but what I'm questioning is his description for what he's billing for is the amended Blackwood West redevelopment plan that was presented to us in June.
I believe he's saying that it's related to Blackwood West, but it's a different.
Please don't shout out, Sam. Please don't shout out. Please don't shout out. Thank you. Please don't shout out.
Again, that is my understanding. Certainly, Mr. Lechner has spoken with Mr. Sochak, so he can chime in on that also. But because he's mentioning Blackwood West does not mean that it is part of that individual contract that was awarded.
Okay, but he's describing what he presented in June. That's the description for the bill, what he presented to council in June.
You have that paragraph, and he is in there saying that it's under general redevelopment. And by general, he means that is outside of any contract that was awarded. Can you hear me, Sam?
Okay, but my question is, the information that was presented to us in June was presented as the amended Blackwood West redevelopment plan.
And I'm telling you what I understand from what Mr. Sochak had told me. Mr. Lechner sitting here, asked Mr. Lechner if he understands it the same way. That it was not part of what was awarded, and that $24,000 that you mentioned, it is outside of that, and it is under general redevelopment. That's what I understand.
Can I ask Mr. Lechner?
Sure.
Mr. Lechner, could you explain this, please? Because I'm confused.
Can I go to the microphone?
Sure. Thanks, Ken.
I agree with Mr. Cardis that we asked Mr. Slaheka to better describe the invoice for that particular bill. And we had several, telephone conversations, at least one virtual meeting on the way it's different is Jeremy Teicher, who's a redeveloper in the township, still in the Southwinds project. Part of the redevelopment plan includes a makerhood concept, and Mr. Teicher is proposing a makerhood development that he presented to Township Council at a work session that we had maybe a month or two ago. And so there's been a lot of telephone calls, conversation, emails back and forth on trying to incorporate Mr. Teicher's redevelopment project as part of the Blackwood West redevelopment plan. So that's how it's, as Mr. Slaheka describes it, outside. When the original scope of work was prepared, we didn't, to the best of my knowledge, we didn't even know that Mr. Teicher had this project.
Right.
So that's why Mr. Slaheka, through his emails, are self-explanatory, but he describes it. That's why he kept it, as Mr. Cardis said, under I don't know the word for word, general redevelopment plan. He kept it separate because he wanted to pigeonhole the work he was working with on the makerhood separate from the overall plan.
Okay.
That,
Thank you,
was
Mr.
that a good enough explanation?
Well, you have to ask Ms. Coyne.
I did the best I could.
Ms. Coyne, do you have a follow-up to that?
I do.
Okay.
So the June meeting, what was presented was a makerhood. And your explanation is the makerhood is in addition to the amended Blackwood West redevelopment plan. Am I understanding you correctly?
Not specifically, I don't think. The makerhood concept theme was always part of the Blackwood West redevelopment planning by the T&M Associates. This project by Mr. Teicher is a real project. So he presented the diagrams and everything to Township Council. So that will be incorporated actually into the redevelopment plan. This illustrative plan from Mr. Teicher will be, instead of having a bunch of words, text that describes the makerhood, we're going to actually, or any prospective redeveloper will actually be able to see a diagram of what we think it means. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So we're actually going to have a diagram right in the plan of what we think a makerhood looks like. And it's going to be based on his redevelopment project.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Leck.
Okay, so can we expect more billing under this general redevelopment that has to do with Mr. Teicher's plan?
You can answer from there.
Yeah, that's really an answer for Mr. Slaheka. I mean, we're winding up the draft plan right now. I think that it's possible because we recently passed a cannabis ordinance that which is a permitted use in the existing Blackwood West redevelopment zone. So now we need to, the new redevelopment plan is going to have a different redevelopment zone. So now we have to compare the existing zones with the proposed zone to see where we really want to have cannabis. So that may be considered extra work because we didn't contemplate that in its original scope of work that he did a few years ago.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Coyne, do you have anything else? There was another hand back there that would like to speak.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, with the red hat, you raised your hand. Thank you. Philly's hat.
Ira Eckstein, I live in Glen Oaks.
Mr. Exman, good evening.
Hi. I was, got some questions about this recycling truck.
Okay.
Is it an additional truck or is it replacing a truck?
So this, we have a global agreement with the MUA where the township purchase trucks and vehicles for the MUA. They are down, I spoke to the executive director this morning. They were down 3 trucks last year. They were using Packers for their recycling. It takes about 12 to 18 months to have this type of vehicle brought on board. And so with tonight, with passing and accepting the bid, they order the body, the chassis, it's separate orders and it's built to specs, and we could possibly receive it in May of 2022. The useful life of some of these recycling, these vehicles or public works vehicles, from what I spoke to, executive director of the MUA, Mr. Card, about 10 years. Mr. Cardis, give or take.
I would say you're correct at 10 years on the recycling, the arm machines.
Yes.
And you're correct also. To answer the gentleman's question, eventually it's going to be a replacement because they're having issues with some of the trucks that they're using right now. And as Mr. Mercado pointed out, they're using a Packer when they ought to be using an armed vehicle to lift these things. So
So what's happening to the 3 trucks that are down?
Are you aware,
Mr. Mercado, I know of, I believe about 2 years ago, they had, one had an electrical fire. It was a total loss at the MUA. There was it caught fire. I know that one got destroyed, and it was one of the big trucks, so.
Mr. Cars, can you find out for us?
Yeah, I don't know
Status
if
of
they're
this
all
three.
down. I don't know if the issue is trying to maintain them and mechanically fix them and keep them on the road. They've been asking for another truck to be ordered for some time now. And as you know, last year when we had
We didn't order it for them
we
last
didn't
year.
do anything capital-wise when we were in the middle of the pandemic. And that was disheartening to them because they really needed another vehicle. And unfortunately, it just takes a year to
12 to 18 months to get a vehicle.
which is disappointing.
Well, if one of them burned up, that'd be an insurance claim.
Correct.
Where's the money?
Money came in, we did receive the money.
But it hasn't been replaced. That was the point of it.
That's correct.
So is that going to be subtracted from our cost technically?
Well, under the global agreement, all the money that the township has to fund.
Can you back up for a second, explain the global agreement?
Okay,
Yes,
so back in 1992, I believe it was, 91 or 92, the township entered into what's called a global agreement between the township and the GTMUA. That agreement is listed in their audit as solid waste. There's two parts to their audit. They have a sewage part, and which is obvious what that is, and then solid waste. There are three elements to the solid waste. There is the collection of the bottles, cans, the plastic, the cardboard. There is the collection of grass, and there is also the third thing is the maintenance of a New Jersey DEP licensed compost facility, which they have, one of the only ones in South Jersey that is approved by DEP. So we, under the global agreement, must provide them all the money to pay for all the costs to run the programs down there, to collect the recyclables, to collect the grass when they're collecting it. I believe it's a 6-month period. And then to operate the compost facility. And anytime there is equipment needed or there are repairs needed, the township pays for that. Now, what happens is the end product is sold and it generates a profit. So when all that's said and done, the audit that is conducted takes account of all the expenses and all the revenues that are generated. And then at that point, there is a residual amount of money that comes back to the township. So we get money back. They don't keep anything. They can't keep anything. They're not allowed to commingle any of the solid waste, those three parts I just described, with the sewage. They have to be separate. If that makes sense.
How many other people quoted on this, companies?
We only had one bid.
What'd you do, piss everyone else off? I mean,
No.
I would, there's plenty of manufacturers out there. I mean,
They put a bid.
whoever you're buying the truck from, you're buying, I think, a Kenworth or a Peterbilt.
Hunter Truck Sales and Service.
Well, that's either Peterbilt or Kenworth. That's what they are. And they also have an international. It could be an international. So you're not sure what you're approving.
No, I know what I'm approving for. I'm approving a recycling truck. I know what I'm approving.
Not really.
Okay. Any other questions you have, Mr.?
Never mind.
Thank you.
Mr. Sweet?
Evening, Council. Sam Sweet from Ariel.
Good evening.
Question from last meeting. You had mentioned about letting people know about a certain area, like you mentioned the Wawa going up in Ariel. And there, I believe it's 200 yards, with
200
anybody within 200 yards,
200 feet.
200 feet, yards,
For notification for planning board. 200?
200 feet. Who decides that? Because you had mentioned that obviously Glendora is not affected by the Wawa in Ariel.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just using your
We're
example.
not here to provide an example. that would residents in Glendora be notified of a project on Berlin Cross Keys Road? No, they wouldn't.
And that's fine, it's
There's people-
understandable.
There's people who have certain interest in projects and, they're more than welcome to have that interest, but go ahead.
What I'm getting at is that Wawa in Ariel, I live in Ariel, I'm not 200 feet from the Wawa, but I wasn't informed of it. And I know a lot of my neighbors and people in Wye Oak and Country Oaks weren't informed of it either. And again, they're not 200 feet. So who sets that standard? Is that the township? Is that, you
Land
just,
use law.
That's law.
Land
Land use law?
There's a
Statute.
Statute.
it's a New Jersey statute or a township
Yeah.
statute?
New Jersey.
New Jersey municipal land use law.
And can we adjust that or is that just set in stone?
That's legislation from the state of New Jersey.
Okay, but as a township, can we say we want it to be 400 feet? We want it to be a mile? Depending on the size of the project, depending on, I'm just asking.
That obligation of notice to everyone within 200 feet is on the applicant.
Yeah, so that would fall on not just a Wawa, but if, Mr. Cardis was putting an addition or zoning, looking for zoning for his home, he would have to notify someone a mile away, for your example, or 500 feet.
Okay, but
So he has to incur that cost. And I would imagine that anyone would balk if that was expanded, whether it's a single family, a homeowner, or a developer.
There's also publication notice in newspapers.
Yes, okay.
all right, I'm just was asking because I like that Wawa affects me in Ariel with new traffic patterns, the Wawa being there. I can get a soda on the way in to work, but I wasn't informed. That's all right. Why? Question about the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation. I know it's a private entity, nonprofit. The township, it holds meetings in this building, and we're paying township funds for Triad Associates to attend the meetings. Am I correct on that?
They're the economic development consultant.
Yes, but Triad is attending those meetings,
I would imagine, I don't have meeting minutes, but gentleman from Triad
but
nodded yes.
all right, well, the reason we pay bills for Triad and Triad's on the invoices saying that they're attending those meetings.
Okay.
So by proxy, we're working with the EDC, Gloucester Township is.
Well, they're there, I would assume they're there in capacity of the mayor administration of the town, executive side of the town, who directs them to be there for their function, economic development.
Okay.
And funding of programs and those kind of things.
So is it practice though for Gloucester Township to do business with a corporation that's charter's been revoked?
This charge has been revoked.
The EDC's charter's been revoked since 2012.
Mr. Carver, is that something you could look into for us?
I can check, I can look.
Okay, because, and that's 9 years. And they've been around quite some time, and why are we doing business, and why are we using township funds?
Well, we're not doing business with them.
We're using township
We're
funds.
having our professional to attend those meetings. And then whatever information and assistance that they can give back to the township, or when they participate in some of the programs that the township has, that's, I would imagine, is their function of going there to give back information to the township. So they're not going there to assist the economic development corp. They're going back there representing the township or whatever information they can.
So Triad is representing the township. We're paying Triad to represent the township there.
We're paying Triad and Triad goes there.
So by proxy, Gloucester Township is sort of paying for a defunct entity.
Paying for
The EDC's charter's been revoked
We're paying for Triad.
to be there working with a company that's technically defunct since 2012.
I don't know how we would have that information, but I can check and see if that information is true.
But why wouldn't Triad have that, and why would council not vet the EDC?
But we'll verify that, the information provided. I like
Okay.
to verify things.
And if you could get back to me as soon as possible, it can be verified tomorrow morning.
I'll verify.
It's already been verified, Mr. Mercado. I also like to apologize for my outburst
Yes, I
there.
appreciate it.
but we couldn't hear. So I don't know why
We'll try to tune up the microphones, make them a little louder.
they don't have microphones.
Unplug that contraption over there, the humidifier that we had here.
And it's not just for the people that are in this room, but also the people that are on camera. Getting a lot of complaints that they can't hear.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We have time for one more speaker. Does anyone else want to speak that has not spoken? Ms. Corney, our last speaker of the evening.
Again, I just want to clarify one more time that according to Triad's RFP that they submitted to the township, they state that they are being paid by the township to handle the agendas and the minutes for the EDC. So we are paying Triad Associates to handle administrative duties for the EDC, according to Triad's RFP.
Okay, I'll take a look at the RFP again.
Thank you.
Thank you. So second public portion, polling of directors.
Mr. Barlow.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Curtis.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Blackman.
Nothing to report.
Chief Harkins.
Only just to let council know, we had a missing 14-year-old. I walked right in front from that scene, young man on the autism spectrum, and we had everything out, full response from the agency. So everything was up. Drones, helicopter, not our helicopters, state police, but we had everybody out. And we had a training scenario today at the outlets. That's what our SWAT team and our tactical units and other officers were doing. And they were pulled over and turned into the search, and everything came together. And it wouldn't have been possible without the support that the town provides us. So it was much appreciated. All this equipment and training and whatnot was put to good use for a young man that went missing. Luckily was nearby. We were able to locate him and get him home safely. So I thank the town and council and the administration for your support for the officers to have that kind of stuff. Good training for us, good response, and I'm confident that we're as prepared as we can be to handle these kind of situations. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chadwell.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Grace.
Nothing to report, and have a great night. Congratulations to the citizens who got awards this weekend, and to their hard work in our communities of Gloucester Township. Thank you, and have a good night.
Mr. Mannion.
It's very nice, Chief, to hear a great outcome like that. So great job by your team. And as Carolyn had said, Ms. Grace, congratulations to the volunteers who were awarded this Saturday. It's nice to see that because it's a tough job being a volunteer. And that's it. Everybody have a great night, great week. Thank you.
Mrs. Trotta.
Congratulations to our citizens that were awarded on Saturday. It was a really nice affair, ceremony, I should say. And thank you, Chief, for all that you all did to help locate the missing person. It was nice, not nice, I'm not sure what the exact wording would be, but to look on social media and seeing people sharing something to help find somebody, because so many times we see so much negativity in other ways, but to see a community come together to try to locate someone, it was nice to see people working together for.
Vice Mayor, I'm glad you said that. I remind me, it was quite impressive to see the number of residents of that neighborhood. We had people looking all over. We were receiving tips, and it was ultimately even his young friends who got the message that he was missing. He started communicating with them, which led us to be able to get with them and help communicate to get him. But that whole neighborhood was the entire Valley Brook, you name it, everything around the Glen Landing School area, that's where our command post was searching the area. We had people offering, it was impressive. The community was offering, we had off-road vehicles offered to us, people just searching their areas and keeping their eyes out. So it was very impressive. Great for Gloucester Township.
It was nice to see the power of social media being used for the greater good of the community. So well done.
Mr. Mercado.
Thank you for coming out this evening. Again, congratulations to all the recipients at the Citizens Appreciation Park event this past Saturday. Again, I'll echo what I stated earlier when I was reading the e-gov access emails. There is no cancellation of Halloween. So if you do come across that on social media, please don't spread information that is not accurate. There is Halloween that's taking place. We have a curfew that goes from 2 to 7:30 on Sunday, October 31st, and we're asking people to enjoy Halloween and be safe as much as they can be. And just echoing what my colleague said regarding the missing youth today, I was coming back from dinner with my family, and a comment was made in my car. I was like, and this is why we get all these things, because we saw the drones, we saw the vehicles, we saw the different equipment that and the tools and resources that we provide our officers to do the job that they do, and they're exceptionally well at it. So thank you very much, Chief Harkins, and please send that and share that with your men and women of the police department. These are the things that we approve through our capital budget, and I have no problem approving those things because it helps our community. So thank you very much. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Have a great evening.
Hey, Chief Martin.